Principal Scientist, ECPS Division, CSIR SICRI. So he has received his PhD in Chemistry from Indian Institute of Technology Madras, India in 2006. Then he moved to National Institute of Material Science, Japan for 3 years, from 2006 to 2009. After having 3 years of experience as a postdoctoral researcher, he moved to Tohoku University in Japan as JSPS Research Fellow. From April 2012, he joined at CSIR, Central Electrochemical Research Institute, SICRI, Karaikudi. Currently, he is working as the Principal Scientist in Electrochemical Power Sources Division. His research is focused on the development of advanced materials for energy conversion and storage. He has published 180 research articles in reputed international journals like JACS, Advanced Functional Materials, Chemistry of Materials, ACS, Applied Materials and Interfaces, and Chemcom. And he has also authored 7 book chapters and have presented his research in 160 plus conferences and have published 2 patents in his credit. He has a H index of 48 and an I-10 index of 139 and a total citations of 8,800 plus as of October 2023. He has also guided 7 PhD students and 6 students are in progress under his guideship and have completed several projects worth of various MSc and MTech students. Also, he has several honors of awards to be mentioned here as he was recognized as world's top 2% scientists in 2021, 22 and the present 2023, which was in the category of energy by Stanford University, USA in collaboration with Elsevier. So he was also elected as the Fellow of the Academy of Sciences, Chennai in December 2020, and then he also have obtained JSPS Bridge Fellowship in 2018 by Japanese Society for the Promotion of Science. So with this great experience and the profile, so we are very happy to welcome Dr. M. Satish to deliver his research address here in this FDP program. So we hope that all the participants would be benefited through this topic of energy storage through our guest, Dr. M. Satish. Sir, please.
Of course, we will give some of the fundamentals, how it works, so all these things. I don't know how many of you are from physics and chemistry background? Okay, I think there are more people. So I'm sure that you can able to get something at the end of the talk. Of course, others will not disappoint. You will also get something on the end of the talk. So I'm sure many of you are aware of CSIR, right? CSIR is the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. So here, under the CSIR, there are 37 laboratories. Each lab is made for some specific application. Okay. So as you can see the title of the lab, so this you basically work on electrochemistry. Okay. So anything not only science or physics. We also have a lot of engineering, civil engineering, electrical engineering, and these days we are recruiting electronics also, electronics and electrical engineers for a scientist position, not for other reasons. Okay, so the role is, for example, in the case of civil engineers, we will be working on corrosion. So that is one of our major division. So a lot of industries are funding us. So the corrosion in the concrete. So there is iron rod, right? So that how it will be exposed and how fast it will get corroded, particularly in the mega bridges and as well as water tanks. Okay, so those areas in some of the government buildings, how it get corroded, supercapacitors, and the upcoming batteries like air batteries, and then flexible and bendable batteries, all these things. We do have electroplating and metal finishing. We have air elongation. Even the electronics and electromechanics people are working on the biosensors and the soil sensors, so different kind of electrochemical sensors. Okay, so this is a brief introduction about our institute. Of course, we will encourage master students, particularly in physics, chemistry, and even some engineering, some of the engineering, not all engineering. So people to come and work in our lab for 3 months or 6 months, depending on their final year project. So that's for only for final year students, okay, not for others. So they can do their project work, so that they can interact with some of the scientists. They will get an opportunity to learn what were get some kind of research experience when we stay at the CSIR Sikri. It's not only CSIR Sikri, any CSIR. It's nearby CSIR we can also approach, or some of your friends or students or colleagues if interested, ask them to go through the websites and then they can find information how to apply it. Of course, the application has to come through the proper check. So coming to my group, we are working on various aspects of material science. Basically, I am a material person, but trained into electrochemist, now working on the energy storage. So basically, we prepare a different kind of materials. We work on materials like supercritical fluid exfoliation or liquid-liquid interface synthesis, also metal oxides or sulfides. We also work extensively on carbon-based materials. So I think the battery has gone. So here if you see, this is the one which we are generally use it for the fluorines. I don't know, maybe physics and chemistry people can able to understand. Fluorines is almost like carbon nanotubes. So this is generally a carbon nanotube. You maybe come across the top one. Whereas the bottom one is the C60 molecules. It's self-assembled into a tube-like thing. It's not only that, you can also able to make different morphologies. What kind of morphologies you can want to, you can accordingly you can tune the fine synthesis. Anyway, I am not going to talk much about it. Just I want to put some of them in the audience so that you can able to understand. The other side is we are also use supercritical fluids. So many of you may be aware of supercritical fluids. When you take the particular solvent into high temperature and pressure, above the critical temperature and pressure, it will become as critical fluids. For example, if you have the carbon dioxide is a well-known example. Carbon dioxide is if we take it into high temperature and then the pressure, high temperature and pressure, obviously it will become a fluid. The advantage of fluids is like it can diffuse through the molecules. So even there is a small gap between the molecules that can go through as like a gas. At the same time, it can have liquid-like properties. So that's a dual in one approach. So for this we use this liquids to make it different kind of materials, particularly exfoliation of layered materials. Like when the graphene came, there are a lot of interest on 2D materials. So starting from graphene, hexagonal boron nitride, MOS2, all these kind of materials. It's not only that, even if some of the case, for example here it would be able to do the disintegration of suicides. And you can able to get a carbon quantum dots or particular quantum dot materials. So this also can be used to making kind of strings. When you have a small single sheet, the surface energy is very high. So when you have the high surface energy, the particular molecule or the particular structure want to minimize the energy, so obviously it will roll down. So that the number of exposure to the atmosphere will be less. So that's called the surface energy. So obviously the surface energy plays a major role on the electrochemistry. So how the surface energy is increasing or decreasing a particular electrochemical properties, that's one of our interest. So for this we use some this particular method for the exfoliation of MOS2 or boron nitride. Also we use this particular technique for integrating two kind of sheets. And I have X and Y sheets, it's a different material, and then I will make it AB kind of stacking. Then we will see how the property will change. Instead of AAA or BBB like this, I can make a A and B composition. We also use this method to decorate some of the nanoparticles inside the material. Okay, so for example, carbon nanotubes, so kind of this is a structure. So when you do it a normal solution process, only the solution will be able to decorate some of the particle only on the surface of the material, not in between the sheets. So these fluids can pass through the sheets, it can carry some nanoparticles inside and then get it deposited over there. So that is an advantage of these techniques. Anyway, I am not going to talk much about it. I think we are also working with photocatalysis. I think morning we have a very brief session with Professor
Sankar, so I need not to talk about it, some of the slides. So I am sure that by this time you will be aware why people are interested in hydrogen. Hydrogen is the lightest element. But of course that interesting thing is, when you burn with oxygen, it will not produce any carbon dioxide. But that is not true in many cases, since these days people are making the commercially available hydrogen is not produced by green routes. In the sense hydrogen burned with oxygen and will give the energy and water, that's a green process, no doubt. But when you produce the hydrogen, you are already emitted a lot of damage, a lot of carbon dioxide to the environment. You already made enough damage to the environment. Okay, but now what people are talking is you have to make the hydrogen also in a green route. So that's why this photocatalytic or photoelectrocatalytic process are much interesting. But not only that, if you see the energy can be stored in your hydrogen, so that's a very amazing one. If you see that lithium-ion battery, people are talking a lot about lithium-ion batteries, can store only 0.54 megajoules per kilogram. Okay. Whereas the gasoline, that is petrol or diesel, whatever may be the conventional fuel you take it can store only 46.9 megajoules per kilogram. Whereas if you take 1 kilogram of hydrogen, it can store most 120 megajoules. So compared to lithium-ion batteries, is more than 200 times. Even the conventional fuel, you can take it, it's more than 2.5 or whatever the petrol or diesel which we have it, right? And compared to that, this hydrogen is much efficient. So that is another reason why people are talking about hydrogen. In addition to that, hydrogen is also fulfilling, there are various requirements, okay, for to be a fuel. Of course, it satisfies for all the requirements to be a fuel. So that's why people are well accepted this hydrogen and now trying to make it in green route for the hydrogen production. Of course, as I told you earlier, this hydrogen is also equally dangerous, not easy to handle loss like any other gas. So always safety is very important. And then this is not new, even 10-15 years before itself people have demonstrated hydrogen oxygen fuel cells by using a bicycle or a car, or even they have demonstrated a small aircraft also by using hydrogen as a fuel. So it's a very proven technology. Even this Honda is having this kind of filling stations in the US where they have the solar panels on the highways. So it will absorb the light and then it will produce electricity. So that electricity will be used to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. And then this hydrogen will be stored in the underground. So when the car goes, and then it can fill with the hydrogen gas. So I told you this is again a dangerous one. So there are a lot of accidents that have been reported. But in a quick summary, I can say that there are a lot of opportunities for this hydrogen, and we use it as a production as well as the storage and the distribution. So as of now, the production itself is a very big challenge. Particularly as I told you, you have to make it in a green route, not a conventional route. Okay? So conventional route, if you can able to make hydrogen without emitting any carbon dioxide, that's a very reputed area. So that's why even these days the Prime Minister also talking about the hydrogen. There are a lot of projects for the hydrogen. Obviously, when you make the hydrogen, there are a lot of opportunities for the other people for the reduction of hydrogen. Okay, even the atmosphere we have very little amount of hydrogen. In case if I can able to make hydrogen in this room, whether is there any hydrogen leakage? So there is a sensor is required. So maybe those who are working on electronics can think of making some devices or sensors which can able to detect hydrogen in the atmosphere or the particular environment, the reactor environment, so that that can be also will be taken care. And then storage again, as I told you, if we store it as a gas, obviously there is a cylinder is the only option now. If at all any damage, particularly if we are talking about this electric vehicles or movable vehicle, if any accident, then there may be a great chance for the damage in your cylinders. Right? So obviously the effect that damage will be much higher. If any stationary application like in the laboratory or some institutions or industry where you have a stationary application, then the cylinders are safe. But not definitely for the moving vehicles, like particularly electric vehicles and that. So coming back to today's story, we are going to see what are the other energy storage devices. Particularly if I want to store electrical energy, okay? There are storing energy is a different area. There can be different area, like even you can pump the
water from normal place to the key state. There you can store water. Whenever you need electricity, you can get it back. Okay. Similarly, you can underground high pressure gas is also energy storage process. But here what we are talking about is directly store electrical energy in the form of chemical energy, and when I want back, I can immediately get back my electrical energy. So that is the idea. So if you see, there are few candidates. One is fuel cells, batteries and capacitors and super capacitors. So I'm sure many of you have used batteries. They are using it. Without batteries, almost like we cannot think, right? So mobile phone, if you remove it, you will die. Okay, it's almost like a second heart for us, right? So but there is no charge even in your mobile phone, you will feel insecure. Okay, so such kind of situations. So in the case of capacitors, electronics people might be knowing there may be a small capacitors in your electronic circuits. Do you know what is the role of those small capacitors? Store? Why should store in electronic circuits? Why should store little energy in your electronic circuit? What is the mean? Because there may be a fluctuation in your conventional electricity. Okay, every time it's a kind of shut down your equipment and then restart it. So if at all even there is a milliseconds or farad, 1 microfarad. Okay, so not in milli or 1 farad or 100 farad. It's only micro. So that is 10 power minus 6. Okay, so what we are talking. That's why they call it as a supercapacitor. Okay. Now let me explain you why there are two different kind of devices are required for your battery also electricity storing device and capacitor also energy storage device, particularly electrical energy storage device. So if you see the batteries, if you see the corresponding x-axis, the power density is very less. Okay. Whereas the energy density is very high. Whereas if you see the capacitors or supercapacitors, the power density is very high when compared to batteries and fuel cells, but the energy density is very poor. We know what is the difference between energy density and power density. How long? How far? How long? How far? Both are same. How quick? How quick? Yeah. So how quick I can store the energy? For example, how many of you have inverters in your house? I don't know about Vijayawada, but in Tamil Nadu it's common. Okay. Okay, it's almost same. Okay. So here then obviously without UPS is very difficult. Right? But when you want to use your mixie or your iron box, you cannot use it. Right? Why? It needs more power. If you see how much amount of energy stored in your system. For example, in the case of your UPS, you are storing energy in the lead acid batteries. Right? So the lead acid batteries are how much amount of energy stored if you calculate, and then how much energy required by your mixing just for running 30 seconds or 1 minute. Okay, almost 10 times higher energy will be there in your batteries. Okay, that means theoretically speaking, this your UPS or your battery able to support running your mixing for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Okay, continuously. But even you cannot use it for a few seconds because the power requirement is very high. Okay, the battery is not able to deliver that energy. Okay, though it has huge energy, it cannot deliver. So that is called the power. Okay, the power means you have to take the energy very quickly. A lot of energy suddenly like flashing, right? When you are thundering, you could see there's a lot of energy is released in a microseconds or milliseconds. So that is called the power. So if you see the capacitors and batteries or the supercapacitors, the power density is very high. But the energy density is in the sense how much amount of energy is stored in my system. So that is important. So that there is a quantity of energy or quantity of charge or quantity of amount of energy is stored in my system is called the energy density. Power density in the sense how quick I can store or how quick I can take it from there. Okay. Or maybe you can see this, what is this? What is this race? Generally it's a running race. So what is the difference?
This is 100 meter, this is marathon.
Huh?
This is 100 meter, this is marathon.
So this is 100 meter, this is a marathon race. If I ask this Usain Bolt to run a marathon race, what will happen? At the same speed. Within 1 kilometer I have to take him to the hospital, right? So if this person runs like this in this marathon, then definitely he cannot. Okay. At the same time, if I ask him to run in a 100 meter race, can he able to do it? Both is not possible. Exactly the same. Here it should be very fast, but in a very short distance. Okay. There it will be very slow and steady. Okay. The distance is important. Of course, the speed is important, but the distance is very huge. So from that 30 kilometers or 40 kilometers. Here it's maybe 100 meters or classification 200 meters. Okay. So that's what exactly this in your batteries and supercapacitors. Okay, it's almost like supercapacitor. That means is almost like your batteries. Batteries again there are different kind of batteries, right? What are they? Lithium battery, lead acid battery. So you did not study about the primary batteries and secondary batteries. What are they?
Technologies.
No, don't tell me what is the difference between primary batteries and secondary batteries. I am not asking example. One is rechargeable, other one is use and throw. Okay, that's only one time. You cannot reverse it. Whereas the secondary batteries or rechargeable batteries are you can use for several cycles. Of course, your lead acid batteries and lithium ion batteries all comes under the secondary batteries. Generally being used in your torch light, lead nickel cadmium batteries. So these are the things which comes under the secondary batteries. Some of the cases is only a primary batteries, even the lithium batteries, not lithium ion batteries. Lithium batteries is a primary battery, it is not a secondary batteries. And most of the small cells which you are using in your like your work cloth or the toys, so all these things are primary batteries. Just use and throw. Energy is already stored. You cannot store it. Okay, that's a one-side reaction, irreversible reaction. Still, if you have confusion, that maybe this image will explain you. So here maybe the quantity is maybe some 20 ml or 10 ml. Okay. The moment if I want to empty it, I can just empty it. Okay. The moment I want to fill it, I can also fill it like this. So the charging, discharging will be very quick here. Whereas there, though I have a huge amount of energy, here is the limitations. Okay. So here is the slowly I have to remove and then slowly I want to fill it. So that's what exactly your batteries and supercapacitor. If you can understand that, you are able to see these particular slides. Here we put different properties and then different systems. The charge discharge time is in the conventional capacitors, which is in the electronic circuits, are picoseconds to milliseconds. Okay. Whereas in the supercapacitors, it's a milliseconds to minutes. So obviously in batteries, it needs hours for charging as well as discharging. Operating temperature is almost close, but the life is a major thing. Okay. If you see the life, it's a 10 power 8, greater than 10 power 8 cycles. So that means how many cycles? 1 lakh, 10 power 5, then 1000, 1 lakh. Okay, 1 billion, 100 billion times we can make it cycling. Okay, charge and discharge. So in the case of batteries, it's 150 to 1500. If you are lucky, you can go up to 1500. If you are unlucky, after the warranty period, immediately the battery will not work. But in the case of Chinese products, that is a normal thing. They may have some kind of tempering inside. And out. Okay. So after this warranty period, next day immediately it will die. So if you are lucky, then you can able to use it for 5-6 hours or 5-6 years. Whereas in the case of supercapacitors in between, so if, for example, this is a 5-6 years and then this will be how many years? 30-40 years. Okay. So if I lifetime if I buy one supercapacitor, that's enough. I need not to buy another capacitor. So that is the advantage of supercapacitors. Power density and energy density we have already seen. The power density is very high and moving from here to here it reduces, whereas the energy density is the other way. It is very high in the case of batteries and then it comes down to the capacitors. Weight if you see is hardly it will be few grams. So now I will tell you how this supercapacitor works, why it is very fast. So what are the results have? For example, if I want to work on supercapacitors, what should I need it to be? So we have to understand first how it works. Then only you can able to see what I can contribute. So here I don't know how many of you are aware of conventional capacitors. So the conventional capacitors we studied in physics, even I have also never used. Okay. So through conductive metallic plates will be separated by a dielectric medium. Okay, that's called a capacitor. Okay, so they are two conductive metallic plates. So this both, I don't know here there is some issue in the display. So this should be in yellow in color, bright in yellow in color, here also bright yellow in color. So this is one electrode, this is another electrode. Here the same material. Okay, so it will be some metallic plate. So for example, aluminum plate or SS plate you can assume. In between there is a gap. Okay, that's a dielectric medium. So that's what your conventional capacitors. Here what I am doing is, for example, this area plate, if I want to take it, for example, 1 centimeter square or 5 centimeter square, this area of this electrode. So then I have to take a few grams of my metallic plate, right? So I have two plates. Now what I am doing is, I am removing with this metallic plate with some conductive carbon material. Okay? So the carbon which has a surface area of 2000 meters square per gram. If I take 1 gram, it's a 2000 meters square surface. Whereas even for 5 centimeters square electrode, I have to take at least few grams of metallic plate. Okay, now I have reduced the weight. Okay, greatly reduced, not just reduced. I reduced the weight of the electrode very, very low. So that's why the energy density is increases. Okay, the energy density is increases when compared to the conventional capacitors to supercapacitors. Here I am talking about 100 farad capacitors or 1000 farad capacitors. That means a 10 power 2 to 10 power 3. So from 10 power minus 6. So almost 10 power 8 times or 10 power 9 times increase the energy. So that's why we call it as a supercapacitor. Okay, now let's see how it works. So here what I am doing is I am removing this metallic plate with some conductive carbon electrodes. In between, instead of having this dielectric medium, what I am having is I just take a filter paper which we are using in our or even tissue paper is also fine. I just soak with some sodium chloride solution or potassium chloride solution. I have a positive ion, I have a negative ion. So I just soak it in there and then I put it and separate these two electrodes by this, so that physically these two sheets will not touch each other. Okay. Now I already made a capacitor. Okay. Now I want to do the charging. Charging, how I can do? I can connect it to the external circuit. I give some externally some energy. I pull some of this electron from top to bottom. Okay. So what will happen is some of the electron comes here. So this plate will become negative charge. This top plate will become a positive charge. Okay. So like this. So once this becomes a positive charge, the negative ions in the electrolyte will move towards this and then get absorbed on the surface of the material. Okay, get absorbed on the surface. For example, this is the electrode, this will get absorbed on the surface. You can see some molecules are get absorbed on the surface. So similarly, the negative ion, positive ions will go to the opposite side. That's only attraction. Okay, because of this charge, that is opposite ions will get attracted. Now I already made a charging. Now once if I remove all the electrons, possible electrons from top to bottom, my charging is complete. Now I remove that means I am unplugging it. I connect with some device like LED or mobile phone or whatever it may be. So what will happen is this electron wants to go back and then blow the LED and then go to here. Okay. So once all this electron goes back, so the negative charge will disappear, the positive charge will disappear. So obviously once the charges are disappeared, these positive ions are attracted by the negative ions are attracted by the positive ions. So again it will come back to its original stage. Like this. So already I made one charging and discharging. So here there is no new chemical bonding or there is no complicated reaction takes place. Nothing has been shape change or size change. Nothing has happened. Only ions are separated, then allowed. But still, if you go here and then see, these ions are still within the electrolyte. Okay. It's only get absorbed on the electrode surface. It will never go away from the electrolyte. Okay. Now I can see, for example, my energy density depends upon how much amount of charges I can able to separate. How much amount of charges I can able to separate is depends upon how much amount of electrons I can move from one side to the other side. Okay. If I have more surface area, I can absorb more size, more number of ions. Okay. So obviously I need a high surface area electrons. So that's why people are trying to make it high surface area carbon for supercapacitor application. But the only thing is, since this entire thing is as an electrode, my carbon should be conductive in nature. Okay. So if it is not conductive, I cannot use it as an electrode. So I need a conductivity, I need a high surface area. For example, this is a very thick, assume that this is a very thick paste. So then the electrolyte has to go through the pores within the electrodes. So that this inside the pores also there is a surface. So these ions get absorbed on the surface of the material. Okay. So that's why this surface area plays a major role. I think you are getting sleep, right? Okay. I can see there is a slight transition. So if you are not able to follow, please stop me. Okay. Okay. So I cannot keep on increasing surface area. Everything there is a limit, right? So I cannot keep on increasing instead of 2000, 5000, 6000. It's not possible at all. So I have a limitation. So beyond certain values, I cannot increase the energy density of the device. So whatever I have explained to you is called the electrochemical double layer capacitors, where the charges are separated. We need a high surface area materials, not necessarily carbon. People are using carbon because it's a highly conductive in nature. If we use some metal oxide, I have to add some conductive mixes. Okay. So also the carbons are lightweight in nature when compared to the metal oxide. So that's why carbon is more preferred. It's a highly reversible and very stable system. So even unless otherwise physically I break my supercapacitor, nothing will happen. Okay, almost my lifetime I can use one single supercapacitor. So to assist this, so there is another class of compounds that is called pseudo-capacitors or redox supercapacitors. So here there is a very fast charge and discharge reaction to take place. So metal oxide, transition metal oxide, conductive polymers has to take place. Can be used. I will explain you what is pseudo reactions. The reaction should be highly quick. Since we are talking about the high power, okay, the high power in the sense quickly that the charge has to exchange. Whereas in the case of battery is very slow because the charge discharge process is very slow because of this slow kinetics. Maybe I will explain you what is battery, how it works. Then I will come to you this, then it will be easy. So again, before going there, I just explained supercapacitor, EDFC and redox capacitors are the major class. Very recently, hybrid capacitors also comes. So they want to replace the lithium-ion batteries. So that's why it comes there. We use a composite hybrid, asymmetric hybrid, battery kind of hybrid. I will tell you what it is in the coming slides. Let us not worry about it. Before forgetting how mechanism works, we go to the next slide and then see why your battery is very slow. Okay. So what is happening in your lithium-ion battery? So how many of you are using lithium-ion battery? All are using lithium-ion batteries. You have lithium in the batteries, in your lithium-ion battery. That's what we hear, right? Many people are talking about lithium is inside my mobile phone. But do you have really metallic lithium inside your phone? Sorry? If you see really there is no lithium. Okay. Maybe lithium containing compounds are there, not metallic lithium. I don't know, how many of you experienced with sodium? Sodium in the chemistry lab or physics lab, people might be handled. If I take a small piece of sodium and then put it on the room, nothing will happen initially since it will be surrounded by some always we store it in some kerosene or some oil, kind of oil. Once that gets dried and then we expose to air, it will catch fire. Okay, so that will be very vigorous. Okay, so that will flame like anything, right? So that is the reactivity of sodium. So similarly, lithium is also similar kind of metal. If I put a piece of lithium metal, I will keep it in the atmosphere, it will catch fire. Okay, so but in the case of lithium-ion batteries, there is no lithium at all as a metallic lithium. I will tell you what it is. Okay, I think many of you are using it, so you should be able to understand at least at the end of the talk what is lithium-ion batteries. Okay, in the case of lithium-ion battery, one side you have a graphite. Okay, so that's a layered carbon. The graphite is a layered carbon, right? Are you agree or not? Are you making any graphene? How do you make graphene? Graphene, you know, if you take one layer, top one layer, that is a graphene. The graphite is a layered structure. You can, for example, if you buy a A4 size paper, A4 size paper now, bundle you buy it. You remove the cover. Maybe from 500 sheets will be there, one bundle, right? So that is graphite. If you take one sheet, that's a graphene. There is no chemical bond between the two sheets. Even the A4 size also, so if the sheets are just arranged, there is no bonding. Okay? Just if you take one sheet, that is graphene. So that's what exactly here. So even if you see there is a sheet and sheet, there is a gap. Right? So that gap is called the van der Waals force. So that's what we are talking about here. There is a gap you can see. You can assume there is a layer in carbon sheet. This is one layer, this is next layer, next layer, next layer. There is a gap space. The space is called 0.33 nanometer. 0.33 nanometer. Okay? That is very small amount. So here, this is one side in your battery. The other side, you have some lithium containing compound. I will tell you what is lithium containing compound in the next slide. Maybe I will go to the next slide and then come. This is a simplified version. So one side lithium containing compound, lithium cobalt oxide, the other side is a graphite. So now what is happening is when I am charging it, almost like you can see the supercapacitors, I connect to the external circuit. I will move one electron from here to here. This is a discharge. Okay. So here when I am charging, I take one electron through external circuit. I will connect to the plug point. I will give some energy so that the electron can be moved from here to here. Okay. So once one electron goes, one lithium will become Li plus. Okay. Lithium metal, if you use one electron, is a positive charge. This Li plus, there is a electrolyte. If you take the electrolyte ion is surrounded and then it will move to here and then this electron comes to the carbon. This carbon is highly conductive in nature. So this electron will once come here, this electron belongs to the entire compound, not one carbon. Okay. So one electron comes, one lithium also comes as a lithium plus and then after coming here, it will remove the electrolyte ions, only the lithium will go and get intercalated. You can see that it's get accommodated. Okay. Lithium ions is getting accommodated between the two sheets. Okay, what is the force? Since its electron is there in the compound. Okay. Now if I do all these things, if I remove all the lithium from this compound, my charging is completed. When I discharge it, I start using my mobile phone. Slowly this electron moves from here to here. Once one electron goes, the corresponding lithium also should go back. So here this process is very tedious. Okay. Now I will make it very simple and then explain to you why these lithium-ion batteries easily works much better. After 2 years or 3 years, when battery performance are coming down. Okay. Here you could see lithium cobalt oxide. Okay, that is the one of the active compound. There it was the other side, in the previous image. Here the graphite. So this is a crystalline structure. I am sure how many of you, I think physics and chemistry students can understand what is a crystalline structure. Crystalline structure in the sense, for example, this is lithium ion, this is a dark pairs are lithium ions. These vacant pairs are oxygen. This colored one is a cobalt. So this is a layered compound. So this is a cobalt and then this is oxygen, this is a lithium, then it is oxygen, this is a cobalt. The structure is repeated. So now I am removing only the lithium ions from here there. Once I remove all the lithium ions, the structure has to be stable. It's like almost like building block. Your child can able to make some small thing. In between I am just removing this lithium ion and sending it. Many of the compounds will get decomposed once I remove the lithium. So only few compounds are stable. So that compound only we can able to use in the lithium ion batteries. One of the such compound is lithium cobalt oxide. Even I remove all the lithiums, that means still the structure will be intact. There won't be any collapse. So for example, I remove all the lithium there. And then discharging again this lithium comes and sits its own place. Crystal structure in the sense, the sitting place of the atoms or ions in the compound is fixed. Okay. So the lithium cannot go and sit there, oxygen cannot go and come and sit here. It cannot, it's not possible. Okay, because of various reasons, size and charge and so many things. Right? So now, assume that I have 100 lithium ions in the compound. I just send all the 100 lithium ions there. My battery shows 100% charged. Okay? When discharging it, this lithium ion should come back and goes and sit in this original position. What will happen is this graphite is always a culprit. It has some kind of functional group or some kind of defects. So some of this lithium ion will strongly sit there. So after 100, only 98 will come back or 99 will come back. So we lost one lithium ion. Okay. So even after this 99, all these things will not go up to its original place. Instead of that, there is a small space in some other place. Okay. So there it will get accommodated. So what is the problem is, when next time I am charging it, that potential is not sufficient to remove that lithium, that metal ions from there. So because of this, what will happen is next cycling I have 98 or 97 lithium ions. So already I lost 3%. So once even all the 97 ions goes that side, the battery still shows a 100% charge. This process is keep on repeating. Sometimes what will happen is this lithium ion, instead of going and sitting in this place, it will deposit as a metal. Okay, it will deposit as a metal, and then the second lithium ion will come and grow, so it will become a lithium metal piece like this over the compound. That's the point, right? So I have a particle. Instead of the lithium goes and sit inside, it will become a deposition, as I was telling that a coating, electrometal piecing. So kind of things it will get deposited on the surface. So then this lithium metal will grow here. So if I grow lithium metal here, obviously that metal is not available for cycling. So what will happen is, after a period of maybe 150 cycles or 200 cycles, the number of effective amount of lithium ions circling between your anode and cathode will come down. Maybe 50%. Only 50 or 60 lithium ions will be circling between your anode and the cathode. So here what is the problem is, why this battery explodes. Sometimes what will happen is, when you try to discharge more, you have to give time. So this lithium ion diffuse into the molecule and sit in this original place. For example, this room is open. I suddenly send 20 people. Immediately I am asking them to sit. What they will do, they will sit only on the first floors. They will not come here and then sit. Right? If I give time and then slowly they will come and they will sit in all the places. Once the meeting started, people will hesitate to come and sit here. They have to come through all the way and then have to sit. So that is not happening. So almost the ions also behaves like human being. If you are trying to do it very fast, so everybody will be sitting only on the corner. So like the school, when before the bell, people will pack everything and then ready, right? Once the bell sound comes, they will run away. Exactly the same thing. Here, when you try to do it in very fast manner, so that's why we always should use a rated chargers. We should not use any charger for your mobile phone to charge. Because they try to put more current, that means what you are doing is either you are pulling this electron to go other side, or you are pulling this electron to come this side. When you are charging, you are allowing this electron to go that side. And using it comes here. When you discharge it, that means when you are using, if you are using 3-4 amps, if it consumes a lot of power, obviously the number of discharge will be, the rate of discharge will be higher than the rated discharge. So when the more ions try to come, then heat will produce. So this metal will behave abnormally. If you use it slowly, and then it will try to go it and sit somewhere. Even if you use it slowly also, there will be a misbehaves. Okay. But when you try to do it in different rate, obviously this misbehaves will be very high. It will not happen immediately. Maybe after a month or after 2 months, that will get spoiled your system. So some cases you can see that your lithium-ion battery will get bulged. Do you know why? Sorry? What do you? So did you ever try to open that kind of batteries? But don't do it, okay? That's a very dangerous one. Yeah. So there is a electrolyte, okay? So again you will anode and cathode. So this is a mostly organic electrolyte from organic compounds. So what will happen is when you try to charge more than the rated voltage, for example this is a 3.7 volt, if it is, there will be always +1 or +2 voltage will be excess. So you can go up to 4 volt. If try to go beyond that, what will happen is this electrolyte will split into gaseous compound. What will happen if I take water and put a 2 volt? Morning I think Shankar sir will be told you, right? So after theoretical voltage is 1.23. Okay. If I apply a 2 volt, water will split into hydrogen and oxygen. You can do this experiment very simply in your house. You can buy a 3 volt battery or 9 volt battery. There will be a positive and negative. Just connect with 2 wires and put it some, maybe you can connect with some silver spoon, is also fine. Nothing, don't worry, nothing will happen, okay? Just take a glass of water and then put little salt and then put it these 2 electrodes and connect your positive and negative to these 2 wires. What will happen you can see. You can see the bubbles, both your positive side and negative sides. One side will be huge, the other side will be little less. The huge side is a hydrogen, the other side is a oxygen. So water theoretical voltage is 1.23. But due to over voltage it will split only 2 volt. So if you have a 3 volt battery, that is fine. If you put 9 volt battery, really you could see the hydrogen and oxygen coming. Okay, you can show some of our friends or things, they will be getting interested. So similarly, and what will happen is that this electrolyte is stable up to 4 volt. If a 4.1 volt or 4.2 volt if you charge it, what will happen is the electrolyte will get decomposed, some gaseous products will form. Okay, so because your lithium-ion battery is a compact, it's a completely packed, the volume inside is fixed. So if there is a gas molecules, it will get bulged. Okay, so one point of time it will burst. Okay, so that's why you should not give it to some of the things or should not open with very carefully. So there will be organic electrolyte as well as some poisonous gas. Okay, so that should not be inhaled. So always be careful when you throw in such kind of batteries. It will happen in both your laptop batteries